Maybe for a longer anyways, but yeah. I don't know.
Justin said,
What is it? It's already cleared.
It was.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know.
You're okay.
Whatever you guys can do, but I'm not.
I'm gonna bring it to you.
You're the best looking building inspector we have. Oh, building official.
Very good.
Well, how are you, sir?
how's it going?
Glad to see the AC's working.
I need part-time help.
Is it?
I'm available my way. He said he'd been on
Are we under attack?
No, it's the 87,000 IRS agents.
Shoot.
Give them my big check.
It's bigger than the Pentagon border. In that bill,
And you. Can you call us so that they can't call you?
It's quarterly. January, March, well, actually more than that. January, March, May, September, and November.
This is there.
January, March,
March, May, September, and November.
May, and September. What's that here?
January, March, May, September, and November.
Call to order the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, August 8th, 2022 meeting to order. Ms. Page, would you lead us in invocation and pledge?
Let us pray. Father God, we come to this evening with humble and grateful hearts. Lord God, we ask that everything that we do today will be pleasing unto you, Lord, that it will be done in decent and in order, Lord God, that it will glorify your name. Father God, we thank you for protecting the citizens of this great county, Lord God. We ask that you will continue to bless them and their households. And these and all blessings we ask in your mighty name's sake. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, will you call the roll?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Tiller?
Here.
Ms. Page?
Here.
Mr. Sears?
Here.
And Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Welcome, board members, and welcome to people out in the audience tonight, and also welcome everybody that's watching at home this evening. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any concerns, changes?
Mr. Chairman, there are none. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented and that it be made part of the record.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Any discussion? Ms. Watkins, you poll the members?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Sears?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Next is the citizens' comment period. Has anyone signed up? No one signed up? They're not here.
No one.
Okay, no one signed up. The residency administrator's report, Mr. Wynn. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Hathaway, Marshall Wynn with VDOT. This past month, we had 65 work orders, trying to catch up on some other older work orders, completed 120, and had 4 call-outs. Doing normal activities as we do every month: pothole patching, machining non-hard surface roads, shoulder repair, pipe cleaning, ditching, tree trimming, and mowing. We plan on starting our 3rd cycle of primary mow week after next. And we'll do another secondary mow probably late September. Some of the things that have been completed, well, not completely completed. Rock Hawk Road has been paved. Shoulder Stone is down. They have temporary markings that they applied today out there, or yesterday, one of the two. Route 600, Holly Fork Bridge has been completed. Glad that's behind us now. And as you know, on 155, we have a project going on. The paving's done. They got Shoulder Stone to put down. Still have some grade work to do. and then the pavement marking out there. Hopefully we'll get that done in the next few weeks. I don't know what the grade work, I didn't see anybody doing any grade work, any equipment out there anyway. A couple other items, let's see, quarter study on 60 is still ongoing. I'm sure you know about that, Mr. Hathaway. Speed study on 249, we went out and looked at an area just east of here, on the other side of the post office, and it goes from 55 to 35 kind of abruptly. So we're going to add extra signage in there and put a 55, 45, 35 just to let people slow down so it's not such an abrupt slowdown. Speed study on Tunstall, going to implement a speed reduction for about half of the road in that area from the roundabout back to the north. And the speed study on Good Hope is completed, and the speed limit sign has been installed. It's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit now. Other than that, don't have anything else. Not let y'all have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Steers?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. At our Transportation Safety Commission meeting a couple of weeks ago, it was brought up there's this huge bump in the road on 60 going east, right before you get to Brothers Restaurant.
That's a pipe right there. We're scheduling to put a pipe in at that location. I know where you're talking
You
about.
know exactly.
Yeah.
So is that, you got that on the schedule?
Yes.
Because we've
Yes.
come through this pretty rough. I want to thank you for inviting me to your office last week. I felt honored to be at your house for a change. And then the only other question I have is on the trash and litter pickup. You know, I know the county is paying an outside company to come in and pick up trash, and I hope we're not being redundant in picking up trash on the same roads.
We're trying not to. That's why we've scheduled ours in August, being that VDOT did a huge countywide pickup early spring, well, I guess May, June timeframe.
We did a full pickup with a secondary mow, and we do a pickup when we do air primary mow. We had our contractors do the secondary mow this cycle, and they picked up all the trash on the secondaries on that cycle.
Well, I must say, between the two of us, the roads are looking a lot nicer than they have in the past.
Okay.
But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tiller?
Just a couple things. All right, the speed study on Tunstall, you said from the traffic circle heading north.
Yes.
How far north?
Not exactly sure. It's
To Greenwood?
is there
To Deer Lake?
is there a church down there?
Yes.
It's down in that area, from what I understand.
Okay.
All right. About Hingham is my understanding, so.
Okay.
Hingham's, that's Green, that's Kenwood Farms.
Okay. Well, that's the second entrance into Kenwood, I believe.
Yeah, that's second entrance.
And the other thing, you were talking about, Sonia, about some loom trimming. There's a place on 60 just east of y'all's little depot there in the middle of.
A
Route
Toe
60.
Inc.
Yeah, Toe Inc.
Okay.
Just east of, if you turn there and made the U-turn and started going back east, there's a couple really large limbs that go all the way across the road. I mean, their leaves are touching leaves on the trees on the other side of the road. And the lady that lives along there was a little concerned.
Eastbound.
Eastbound.
Okay.
I mean, they're all the way. So if you can take a look,
Will do.
they may be more than your, did y'all hike like 20 feet? That y'all
Yeah,
trim
that's
up?
about all we do, up to 20 feet.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, you might take a look at it then, because I got a feeling it's over 20 feet.
Right. I got you.
Anyway, so, but I'll let them know that you will.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Lockwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Wynn, I just want to thank you for all the work that you did get done on Holly Fork with the spillway and replacement and repaving that dam, and also the work that Joe Terry's been doing on Holly Fork and Tabernacle. He's been going at it for a while now, and it needed a lot of attention, and it's been getting it, so I appreciate that. And those dangerous trees we talked about last time are gone. So, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Page?
I don't have anything.
Yep, no, I just appreciate you coming out tonight. I mean, I've not had, my district has been, after we got the roundabout straight and that bridge over there,
Okay.
I've not had any calls, so I appreciate all you're doing for New Kent and keeping my fellow board members happy.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Tiller, you have, yep.
Mr. Chairman, I move to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-37111.8.5 of the Code of Virginia for discussion concerning a prospective business where no previous announcement has been made of business interest in locating its facilities in the county. And Mr. Chairman, I move to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-37111.8.3 of the Code of Virginia for discussion regarding the acquisition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the county. The motion involves property formerly known as McKimmie Woods Campground.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. So we'll be going into closed session, but our public hearings don't start until 7, but we should be out well before that.
So we gotta come back?
Yep. Call the meeting back to order.
Oh, you calling it back? So.
Yeah. Yeah, Ms. Watkins, we follow the meetings coming back, members come back into,
Someone make a motion to come out of closed session.
I did.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Evelyn?
aye. Mr. Teller, you can read the certification?
I move that the board certify by roll call that said that to the best of each member's knowledge on the public business matters lawfully exempted from the open session requirements of the Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion that during the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in closed session.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Lockwood? Aye. Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. We're back in open session. Good evening again, everyone. It's after 7 o'clock, so we can jump into the public hearings. First public hearing tonight is ordinance O-20-22, creating Chapter 70, Article 7 of the New Kent County Code, camera speed monitoring and enforcement in highway work zones and school crossing zones. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board for your consideration this evening. Again, it's ordinance O-20-22. This does create Article 7 in Chapter 70 of the New Kent County Code for the purpose of allowing camera speed monitoring and enforcement in highway work zones and school crossing zones. There are no present plans for camera speed enforcement in work zones, but our Sheriff's Office is currently working with Blue Line Solutions for camera speed enforcement in our 3 school zones in the county. This ordinance is required to be adopted in order to give our law enforcement the legal authority that has been granted in the state code for this type of enforcement. I would like to play a brief video that explains the purpose and need for the request. And then we have our Sheriff's Office and a representative from Blue Line Solutions here today to answer any questions you may have.
When I was a young deputy, I was on patrol one day on Highway 91, and I hadn't received any dispatch calls or anything of that nature. But as I topped the hill, traffic was stopping. And I sat there for a second trying to figure out what was going on. I put my blue light on and went around. And I realized pretty quickly that there had been a crash that occurred just apparently seconds earlier. I jumped out of my patrol car and ran down to the crash. And in the back of one of the vehicles was a little 10-year-old boy. This vehicle had hit a dump truck head on the wrong side of the road, and the driver ended up having a blood alcohol level of 132, and that was his father. But this little boy in the back seat, his name was Matthew, and I could tell he was hurt pretty bad. I opened the door and started rendering aid to realize the extent of his injuries. At that time, we didn't have portables, so I had to run back to my patrol car and call for an ambulance. I ran back down there and tried to keep Matthew alive as long as I could, but he died in my arms before the paramedics got there. So as I went on through the oncoming weeks, it just stuck with me. I couldn't shake Matthew, and I was having dreams, and it was really working on me. So I started realizing that every day I'm answering calls. I'm answering calls for a burglary, I'm answering calls for domestic, I'm answering. I'm always reacting. I realized, though, that Matthew didn't have to die. And if I could get out and stop people from drinking and driving, I could stop people from speeding, that's proactive, it's not reactive. So it occurred to me that traffic enforcement is the only thing that a police officer can do that's proactive. So I started making traffic safety a priority of my life. And here I am, 30 years later, with Blue Line Solutions, and we're still making a difference in traffic safety. And we focus primarily in school zones, but what sets us apart is a public information and education component. With the True Blue program, we start by collecting 5 days of speed data. We want to understand if there is a speeding problem in that school zone, and if so, how big the problem is. Then we start sharing that data with the community and the parents. Then we start working with the political leaders and combine that coordinated effort to receive support for the program. As we move through the program, from the public information education to the warning period to the enforcement, we're going to see speed reductions at each of those phases. And we continue to share that information with the community and the elected officials so that you can see that the program's working long term.
We've had a lot of complaints about speeding through our school zone. We actually have a middle school and an elementary school right across the street from each other. And so during the 5-day study, we found we had over 15,000 vehicles that drove through that school zone, and 3,235 of those were speeding 11 miles over the posted speed limit, which was pretty shocking to us.
One of the complaints that I first got when I came in as a police chief was speeding through our school zones. We have 16 different school zones, and it's really important for us to understand that we don't have a police officer to put in every one of those school districts.
One of the neat things about automated speed enforcement, it's really a force multiplier. I mean, law enforcement is stretched so thin today. We want to have law enforcement, we wish, in front of every school, but that's just not practical. But what we can have is automated speed enforcement. That's really better than law enforcement being there because it works, it's not biased, it treats everybody the same, and it's accurate. So with automated speed enforcement, it allows law enforcement to do other things that you want them to do while making our streets safer, especially in front of schools.
Speed enforcement in school zones is just one component of a comprehensive security plan that every school system in the state of Georgia is by law required to have. So what our administrators need to remember is that not only do we have to protect our children inside the classroom and on the school buses, but we also have to protect that area around the schools to make sure our children, the most precious resource that we have in this country, that when their parents see them go out the door every morning, they can see them come home every night.
It is very important for the City of South Fulton and the Fulton County School Board to partner on our safety programs. We believe that safety is critical for all of our students and our faculty.
The safety program is in honor of Renaya Majors. She was an 11-year-old student at Sandtown Middle School full of life, and she was killed by a speeder speeding through the school zone.
The death of Renaya Majors impacted this community very heavily.
We had several fatalities in our city coming into the time before photo enforcement. The school safety program has addressed our top priority here, and that's keeping our school students safe. In phase 1 of implementation, it instantly changed driver behavior, reduced speeding in our school zones by 90%. It dropped to 181 speeders, which was a 94% decrease. And so that was a huge impact to our small community.
Once we put photo enforcement in place for the following 8 years, we had 0 fatalities. We did realize that through our photo enforcement program that we were able to reduce violations in the high 90%.
We've had an 82% overall reduction in speeders coming through our school districts.
25,000 fewer drivers are driving through our school zones. This means safer school zones for our students and our community.
This program has been a godsend to our city and to the safety of our children.
Our kids are safer today because we've implemented this system.
Our mission at Blue Line Solutions is striving for zero. Zero crashes, 0 injuries, 0 endangered lives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff, you got any comments?
Just wanted to add to the video that our interest here is highway safety. Our interest is protecting our students, protecting our motorists, and if the ordinance goes through, my plan is to exceed the public education portion as recommended by the vendor. They recommend a minimum of 30 days of public education prior to putting the program into effect. We are going to do at least 60 days of
public education prior to any enforcement. And as the video showed, 11 miles over the posted speed limit will be the threshold for any enforcement. However, in those school zones, you will have a number of warning notices that you would enter prior to entering the actual photo enforcement section. So the opportunities are there. We are honestly hoping that our traffic volume, our speeds are reduced well below what they currently are simply through the educational process and the citizenry knowing that we have this photo enforcement in place. As you saw in the video, 25,000 fewer cars through a school zone because people realized there was something there, someone there enforcing the speed limit. So it was more advantageous for them to go a different route that they could continue their normal speed at, and to reduce our school zone traffic by something of that nature would just be tremendous, and I certainly think would be beneficial to our students, our school staff, and our entire county. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for the sheriff? All right, well, I'll open.
I have a question.
Oh, Ms. Page.
We talked about school zone, but your original presentation talked about work zones as well.
Yes, ma'am. The state law does include work zones. However, at this point, we do not have plans to use it in work zones because currently in New Kent, we have no state certified designated work zones ongoing as certified through VDOT. Even at that point, if it's on the interstate, I hate to put it this way, but I will be encouraging the state police to take action on the interstates in those work zones, not our officers.
All right, I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone sign up tonight? All right, we have a few people signed up this evening. When I call your name, I'll ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. First, Mr. Larry Reynolds.
Larry Reynolds, 3351 Mount Pleasant Road, Providence Forge. I'm here tonight representing myself, even though I attend these meetings for the Chamber as Government Liaison Director. So ignore the badge, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and other members of the board. Thank you also to Sheriff McLaughlin for the research and study that was conducted, laying the groundwork for his proposal for speed cameras in schools. I dislike speeders and have no pity for them if they get caught. To ensure I don't inadvertently fall into that category, as I several times when I'm in my wasted youth, I now use cruise control all the time. It keeps me safe. I was living in Maryland when speed cameras were first introduced in the metropolitan area, mostly in work zones. The mistake Maryland made, and it turned out to be a huge mistake, was not being forthright about costs, revenue sharing, and maintenance. The conspiracy theorists had a heyday, accusing the state of just setting speed traps to collect revenues. There was considerable backtracking, and legislation had to be enacted to ensure speed cameras had a valid reason for being there. Another result was implementing the 11 mile per hour over the speed limit before fines could be issued. If speed cameras are installed in New Kent County, please learn from Maryland's mistake and publish all the details of the costs involved, who owns the cameras, who installs and maintains them, how they are maintained, and what percentages of fines and fees go to the owners in the county. And assuming they will be installed, then publish all the data collected from the cameras, excluding personal data, so that county citizens can know how many speeders and their speeds are recorded at each location, and the fines and fees collected are divided between the owners and the county. If implemented, hopefully after a few months there will be a precipitous drop in speeders. I support speed cameras for these specific purposes, especially given speeding in these situations can be dangerous. And a personal note that's not in my notes, I worked my way through the first 2 years of college summer laying cross-country gas pipeline. My job when we came to measure highways, even though we tunneled under them, was to be a flagman because we had a lot of equipment on both shoulders. Many times, speeders would go by within inches of me, even though I was waving a neon orange flag at them, and I would have to step back to keep from getting hit. I know how dangerous it can be out there, and I sympathize with all the workers along the highway, even though that is not this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I think you made some really valid points, and I think we'll be able to clear up a few of those after the public hearing. Bradley Harris.
Good evening. My name is Brad Harris, and I live at 11923 Pine Needles Drive. Mine is more of a commentary. I don't know if this is an opposition, but it's something I felt compelled to at least come and address on a couple of points regarding, this is more philosophical. I hear the pragmatism. I have a tremendous amount of respect for our sheriff and the sheriff's department. I've been here 27 odd years. Started out in Minitree, the third house there, and now live in Brickshire. So this is a concern I have, and it has to do more with the idea that we're coming close to dealing with some things that we need to think about. First is the constitutionality of it. Before I was married, my wife was pulled by radar and for speeding. She did not believe she was speeding, and she was able to go to court and face her accuser, which is her constitutional right. And she asked the sheriff at that time, you know, was she the only car? Was there multiple cars? And could he definitively say that she was the automobile that was in question? And he honestly said no. And she was able to walk away without a fine. You cannot bring a camera to court, and you cannot face your accuser. So there's a constitutional concern that I have in this regard. I am in no way qualified to second guess the sheriff's department or even the legal part of this. I'm just wanting to make sure that that question is being addressed. The second concern that I have is the Trojan horse argument. We all know that New Kent County is a place that a lot of people have come to because they want to get away from places that have taken away their quality of life. We know that the county is growing because of that, fastest growing county, I don't know if it still is, in Virginia. And so I'm concerned that the quality of life that we all treasure here, the great management that we have by the board and the security that we're provided by the sheriff department, and the good citizens we have, I think this is a harmonious community, may be affected with the introduction of something like this that has already been discussed in other counties of expanding beyond a school zone or work zone into the entire county. So I've just wanted to present the argument that there is something we should be thinking about when it comes to this. There's a lot of good ideas here of why we should, but I hope you will be considering the long-term aspects of this and how the generation to come is going to be much more familiar and comfortable with the intrusion of their privacy than we are. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. J.B. Benson.
Mr. Chair, distinguished members of the board, I come here in, J.B. Benson, 3902, Homestead Road, Lenexa, District 5. I'm here to support the ordinance as presented. Seems like a very reasonable way of providing important protection at a very, very nominal cost. In fact, it may be no cost. Having said that, I'd like to switch hats right now and speak to you as a board member of Arts Alive. I want to thank you for your multi-year support of the Arts Alive program. Because of your support and the support of others, We're able to provide some very, very important summer programs for youth and adults, drama, crafts, and so forth. For me, the highlight is the winter season, 22-23 season, which starts September 17th. We bring in live national entertainment to West Point at the Robinson Olson Civic Arts and Performing Arts Center. In addition to 5 performances there, you get 5 more over in Matthews at Concerts by the Bay on a different day. So you get 10 concerts, around $100. So I hope some of you would just subscribe. Otherwise, see me for individual performance tickets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. No one else has signed up, so I will close the public hearing. Mr. McLaughlin, Sheriff, would you want to kind of come up and kind of explain how the ticketing in the system is going to work? I know you explained to us at our work session just for the public.
Yes, sir.
And I know you have some representatives from Blue Line here as well.
Greg Hodgson is here with me, and he will prompt me when I mess up, and I will. Traffic will enter the school zones once that process has been established. The school board will establish the actual school zone times when that speed limit will be in effect. The vehicles will be identified by photo enforcement to include a picture of the vehicle, a picture of the license, and a notation in the record as far as the speed, direction, time of day, and roadway, and enumerated the school zone they were in. The process will then be handled through Blue Line. They will, and I want to break down the finance. There will be no cost to New Kent County. Blue Line Solutions will take $15 with an $85 cost return to New Kent if the individuals make the decision to pay ahead of coming and rather than coming to court. The individuals certainly have the opportunity, once they've been notified by citation from Blue Line that they're in violation, they also have the opportunity to pay without coming to court. They also then have the opportunity to come to court to face their accuser, if you would say so, with the presentation of all the documents that are coming to us from the camera system. Again, vehicle description, photo of the vehicle, license plate, owner information, date, time, school zone, and direction, and speed. That information also would be coming to our office. We would review that prior to the issuance of any unusual citation. However, if the driver, registered owner, let me rephrase that, the registered owner of the vehicle wishes to come to court and testify that they were not operating the vehicle on that date, that time, in that violation, as the state law has in effect, they will be required by the courts to come with a signed affidavit as to who was operating that vehicle at the time. If the court accepts that, the case would be dismissed against the vehicle owner, and a new case would take place and be instituted against the person identified by the vehicle owner as the operator and violator at that time. The positive thing is, I expect, honestly, that after our public education, our information sharing, that our speeders through our current school zones will be dramatically reduced. I think you will see a reduction in violations based on the previous traffic studies and speed studies versus what actually you will see take effect if the ordinance is passed once we go through our public education and we put the process in place. Again, multiple warning signs, multiple warning steps prior to. We will be airing our education, social media, town hall meetings, newspapers, every type of communications we can possibly get. And we will be open to contact from our citizens as we always are. Our doors are always open to address any questions or concerns that they may have if the ordinance is passed and once the process is started. Again, VDOT has to approve all of this. We have to go through the permitting process. Blue Line will take care of that. And that it's not going to be a turnaround of the next 3 to 6 months. It's probably going to be more like 12 months. But we will have the opportunity to share the statistics from each school zone as provided to us from Blue Line Solutions, to our board, to our transportation committee, and to our citizens at their request.
Yep. Anybody have any questions, comments for the sheriff? Ms. Tiller?
Why is 11 miles the magic number? Why not 6?
State statute sets it at 11 miles.
Yes, sir. It's set by state code.
Primarily, I think.
Just for this, though?
Just for photo enforcement, correct. And that was set by the General Assembly.
And this fine would be, what kind of fine?
It would be a civil fine, right? And there would be no attachment of the prepaid fines to your record as far as driving history, driving negative points, or insurance. If you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you do contest it and you come to court, then it does become something that would show on your driving history if you were found guilty.
So it is just to make sure it's clarified, it's a $100 fine, $15 going to Blue Line, and $85 going
Yes,
to
sir.
New Kent
By
County.
state code, we're not allowed to enter into a revenue sharing agreement with a locality. We have to set a processing fee. Our processing fee is $15 per violation. 85 would come back to New Kent.
Right.
At that point in time.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
If, let's say, somebody going through at 11 miles an hour, it was a wanted felon, could you use that information that you gathered there to take somebody into custody?
If the system is used and we can, from the information provided by the system, identify that driver as a wanted individual, we could ultimately use that in assisting in locating and processing the arrest. It would not be an immediate response where we would get something back quickly saying a felon just went through your school zone, but we could then identify the vehicle they were operating, the tag, and that, of course, helps us in locating them.
One thing to add to that, per state code under 882.1, any photo that is captured for a violation of either 878.1, which is the work zone, or 462873, which is a speeding violation in a school zone, those photos taken for a violation cannot be used in any other thing except defined for that code. With our fixed locations, which would qualify for like the new school system and your other schools here, we give what they call free ALPR, and that's automated license plate recognition, which is continuously capturing make, model, color, and tag. It is not running it through the VCN or NCIC hot list unless the agency would want that. And if they had a database at the sheriff's office of wanted individuals, they can also upload that into the ALPR system. So if a wanted individual went through that and it was captured, it could be a just about real-time notification to the sheriff's officer, whoever he deems by to receive those type notices. You can put your most up-to-date sex offender registry in it. If you have people who are not supposed to be on school property because of a violation protective order, you can upload all kinds of information from your criminal database here. But again, that information is just captured. It's not ran. It's up to the agency. If you have an abduction or a violent offense happen and you need real-time data, real-time tag number, real-time vehicle description, the sheriff's office has immediate access to that analytical platform to where they can gather that data at any time.
All right, one last question.
Yes, sir.
If it's operating, or could it operate during non-school hours where if a vehicle was stolen and the tag number popped up?
It is continuously in operation.
Okay.
The only time the violations are processed is when school is in session and there are children on the property. That's when that is. But the ALPR system can be utilized for investigative purposes anytime.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for a friend.
Yes, you'll get a ticket.
So let's just say Mr. Tiller went through, my friend went through the speed zone. Is his ticket based on the amount of miles he goes over the speed limit, like I think now, or is it just one set fee?
It is one set speed by code. The board has the right to set the fine not to exceed $100 civil penalty. Under state code, it's $6 per mile plus your county fee and your court costs. So it would be a straight $100 civil fine with 85 going back to New Kent, 15 to Blue Line with no court cost or anything of that sort, because it's not intended to go through the court process.
Okay, there you go, Mr. Teller.
Mr. Steers.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to say that we should be doing anything we can do to safeguard our kids in school crossings. And I know we are a fast-growing county. I know a lot of people are moving here because we are kind of a laid-back society, and they enjoy the quality of our life. We also should enjoy the quality of the life of an innocent child getting on a school bus. These school zone cameras keep our children safer. With 11 mile per hour over the speed limit, you have to be doing 36 miles an hour before it flashes. Ticket is mailed to the offender. Doesn't affect driver's license or insurance. So as long as you pay the fine, the $100 fine, your insurance is not going to go up and your driving record's not going to be affected in any ways. It frees up the deputies so that they can also attend to other law enforcement duties throughout the county. And the tickets are approved by the sheriff first before they're even mailed out. Yes. Correct, Sheriff?
Yes, sir.
Correct, sir.
And then I had one gentleman said, well, what if my wife's pregnant and she's having a baby in the car? I said, I would hit the gas pedal. But I said, I believe in the case of an emergency, either the sheriff or the judge would take that into consideration. And, of course, you'd have to have proven, documents that you were on your way to the hospital, your wife was admitted or whatever. So I don't know why we wouldn't be for it. The only question I have, though, is in the work zones. Now, we've had major highway work going on in this county on major highways, Highway 60, east and west, Highway 155, north and south. People have been out there paving, repaving. You have flaggers, you have one-lane roads and stuff like that. There are no signs put up that says work zones. So how can you ticket someone in a work zone if they are not in a work zone?
If the construction zone does not meet the VDOT requirements to have been established as a work zone, there is no authority to enforce it by photo enforcement.
Right.
So a work zone is by statute and by code defined by VDOT, has to have a notification for warnings, establishment, posting of safe speeds and necessary information. You're correct, sir. Thus far in the recent construction on our highways in New Kent, we have not had any, even temporary, work zones established. Therefore, photo enforcement in New Kent in work zones at this point would be nil.
So with that being said, I would ask the board that if we could have work zones omitted from the county ordinance and protect just our school zones. And, like we've discussed earlier, work zones usually are established out on the interstate, but you have nothing to do with interstate patrolling, so you're not concerned with that. But I would ask that we omit work zones and just have school zones.
That's certainly an option of the board, but the code reads specifically for both in the code. That's why I believe we tailored the ordinance to be in conformance of the state code.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a comment. When we talk about the ordinance, it has school and work zone. So I would ask that work zone continue to stay in the ordinance. However, we will focus on our schools. Indeed, the life of a child is a very valuable life, but the life of an adult is just as valuable. And even though we don't at the present time have those kind of criterias that would deem work in New Kent as a work zone, however, we are the fastest growing county in the Commonwealth, and it is very possible that we will have that kind of instance. So my request, respectfully, Mr. Steers, is that we keep work zone in the ordinance. However, we concentrate on the school zone, because the motion says that we'll be monitoring work zones and school crossings. However, if it doesn't meet the standards, we don't monitor it anyway.
Ms. Page, I would tell you, as long as I am sitting in the chair as the sheriff, our focus will be on school zones and the safety of our residents, students, and school staff.
So until December
of 2023, ma'am.
Next year, okay. All right. So that's my request.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lockwood.
I agree with Ms. Page. I think we should leave the work zone in there. I think it would be something that, it may not be required right now, but down the road, we wouldn't have to come back and discuss it at another later date to add it if we wanted to. It's kind of a moot point because we don't have any work zones. We may in the future have some with all the construction going on. And quite frankly, if we do have designated work zones, I do appreciate the deterrent value of this type of operation to reduce speeds. I mean, what was it, like a year ago with the fire truck that got hit on interstate? How does that happen? I mean, people just don't pay attention. So the more things that we have out there that get people to slow down when it's critical, like a work zone, like a school zone, I think is good for everybody. I think this is a great way to go with it. The deterrent value is huge for locals, yes, but also for all the times that we're sitting, for me, coming out on Holly Forks Road and 64 is backed up and people are flying by 70 miles an hour because they don't care where they are. They're just trying to get through. So anytime we have any kind of added visible deterrent value to slow people down, especially in a school zone when they're not familiar with the road, or a work zone when they're not familiar with the way the road is being redirected, I think is a good thing. So, thank you.
I hope Mr. Evelyn forgives me, but I am hoping that this will reduce our truck traffic on New Kent Highway Route 249.
I wish we could, but I think you got to go up higher than us to make that happen.
Agreed.
Mr. Chairman, there's no more discussion. I
do have one comment. Yeah, I would have to. I'm going to agree with Ms. Steers on this because we haven't seen a whole lot of information on the work zones. We have been. I really like the presentation that you've done with the school zones. I really think with the education that you're going to be putting out in the next 60 days, I feel very comfortable that the citizens are going to understand it. I don't feel like I haven't seen on the work zones as well, and all it is coming back in here when we have those work zones and we can discuss it, and then we'll be educated as well as the citizens at the time. So I do feel comfortable, definitely with the school zones, but I would tend to hold off on the work zones at this point.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the 60 days of public education will not start in the next 60 days after the ordinance. It will start closer to the implementation of the program when VDOT permits are issued and equipment's in place.
But like I said, we don't have any work zones in the county right now, so in 2 or 3 years, who knows what might happen in that situation, the technology changing.
But you can always come back and amend an ordinance, right?
My understanding is, yes, sir. Waiting for Mr. Hefty to indicate yes or no.
It's up.
Mr. Chairman,
it's up to Mr. Tiller.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance 0-20-22, creating Chapter 70, Article 7 of the New Kent County Code, camera speed monitoring and enforcement in school crossing zones.
And Ms. Page, just to clarify, so your motion is to approve the ordinance, but only as it applies to school zones and removing any reference to highway work zones.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Hefty, I could have, never mind. Yep, you did it right. You're just clarifying. Good. All right, any discussion? Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we don't have, Wi-Fi's out tonight. I'm not used to the paper copies anymore. All right, next item, public hearing, fiscal year 2022-23 budget amendment of supplemental appropriations in the amount of $1,025,000 for the purchase of Macamee Woods property. Resolution R-27-22. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I believe you've addressed the issue at hand. I would just like to add that the reason we're here today is because the state code requires that any time we have an amendment of our budget that is above 1%, we are required to conduct a public hearing. The proposed purchase price for the McKimmie Woods project, again, is $1,025,000, which is above 20% of our operating budget, therefore requiring the public hearing this afternoon. The McKimmie Woods property is 274 acres, located in the Burnsville portion of the county. It's currently owned by the Presbyterian Diocese, who we've been working with and who has expressed an interest to sell the property to the county.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hathaway. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone signed up? No one signed up. I'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? I do think the board is purchased this at the time now, but as of it is now, there's no intentions of doing anything with the property for, in the near future. But we do feel like it's got a potential to be a good park. Mr. Lockwood, you might want to expand on it a little bit. It's in your district.
Yes, sir. I think it's an excellent opportunity for the county to acquire a very unique piece of property with waterfront access for canoeing, kayaking, and I think it's an excellent addition to real estate for the county for a future use as a park, and that's how we're kind of projecting it now, and we're just basically getting it while we can and setting it aside until the time is right. I think that if you just take a look at the aerial view of the property, it is a really unique and beautiful piece of property. So, thank you.
So, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt Resolution R-27-22, amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, and approving supplemental appropriations in the amount of $1,025,000 for the purchase of Macamee Woods property.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Is there any discussion? If none, Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Motion passed. Next item, elected officials reports. Mr. Steers?
Just that next Tuesday evening, August 16th, we'll be hosting a town hall meeting at Brickshire with VDOT engineers. Will be there to explain to the citizens of the proposed new temporary roundabout to be built there at the intersection of Kentland Trail and Courthouse Road. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Steers. Mr. Tiller?
I was gonna make a couple comments, but I'll let Mr. Lockwood make them later.
Mr. Lockwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first I want to thank the community for a wonderful Jenna Bash that we had on Saturday at Life Point Church in Toano. And it was a great turnout. With all that was going on in the county, it was really incredible how much stuff was happening on Saturday. We was at the farmers market, we had the Jenna Bash, we had the county fair, there was the farm.
Kuzak, man.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's pretty cool. We got that much stuff going on in the county, so it was very exciting. I also will be conducting a town hall on August 21st, Sunday, August 21st at 3 p.m. And we will be open to anybody in the county who wants to come, but we're going to focus on issues in the 5th District. I invite everybody to come out to Liberty Baptist Church in Lenexa and join us. We'll have myself, Molly McBeath from School Board, Rodney Hathaway, County Administrator, our sheriff will be there, and Brian Nichols, School Superintendent. So I'd like to open the door to anybody that would like to come out and talk about what's going on in the county.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lockwood. Ms. Page?
Thank you for the opportunity. I would just like to take the opportunity to thank our county for our volunteers that help with Relay for Life. As we know, with all the costs and all the concerns of what's going on in the world, sometimes medical procedures and diagnoses go underfunded. And so I am very, very proud of our teams. And I'm very proud to say not only did we meet our goal in 1 month of $20,000, but we surpassed our goal by $2,000. So all I ask is that we be kind as a county. And we talk about people moving into our county, but we are the county. And because we are the county, I ask that we express kindness and greet with kindness. And that's all that I have, believe it or not.
Thank you, Ms. Page. All right, let's go to appointments. Delegated by district. Does anybody have any appointments? Not delegated by district? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Steers.
Since I don't have the readout, I'm guessing it's by appointments, but for Heritage Library Board of Trustees, I would like to appoint Jareen, Jerene Beyer for that position.
That's delegated, okay.
And then on the Airport Transportation Commission, we need to make a corrections between District 2 and District 4. Because a mix-up, I don't know, I think it occurred over a year ago. But anyway, Mac Downs was appointed to District 2, or just from District 2 to District 4, and Bill Martin needs to be appointed back to District 2. That's just some bookkeeping that needs to be done. Bill Martin?
Yeah, he's still on it.
Yeah.
He's got a plane out there.
With moving everything around, he was not on it. He's back on it now.
All right. Any others? All right. Ms. Watkins, we poll the members on appointments delegated by district.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. And any appointments not delegated by district? All right. Any appointment of regional boards and commissions? All right. All right. Next, staff reports. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I do have several items to report to you today. First, I'd like to start with announcing our annual 9/11 ceremony. The date of that ceremony will be September 9th, and it will be at 8 a.m. in front of the courthouse. Of course, that event is open to the public. We encourage the public to attend. There will be additional social media announcements on that date, but please pencil that in on your calendar, and we hope to see you there. The next item that I have is the contract for Station 4. We have a proposed contract with Brinkman Construction for an amount not to exceed $5,273,674. The contract is a 70-page document which was emailed to you Friday, and I have a copy if anybody would like a paper copy as well. But I would like to invite Chief Opet up if he has any comments to add. Okay. And I do have motions. Sorry, I think I left one on my desk.
That's fine. That's fine. Give it to, I think that's Mr. Lockwood's district.
Well, if there's no further discussion, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I move to authorize the county administrator to execute the proposed agreement with Brinkman Construction in a form approved by the county attorney for the construction of Fire Station Number 4 to be located at the intersection of Waterside Drive and Pocahontas Trail for an amount not to exceed $5,273,674.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Is there any other discussion? If not,
Yes, we just getting that contract. Has the county attorney seen the contract?
oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I reviewed it. I've got a couple changes to make, including liquidated damages, but I don't have a problem with you approving it tonight in a form that ultimately I'll sign off on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Anything else, Ms. Hadley?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one more item for staff reports. As you are aware, in November of 2021, New Kent County issued a request for proposals for broadband providers to partner with the county to expand fiber optic high-speed broadband service to every household and business in the county. The county received 3 proposals, and after lengthy reviews and meetings, discussions with the firms that submitted those proposals, the county selected 2 firms to negotiate with. And after a long negotiation process, staff is recommending to select Cox Communications to enter into an agreement with for the expansion of broadband services. There are currently approximately 3,053 homes in the county with limited to no broadband service that will be connected within 28 months of Cox receiving its permits. Work is scheduled to begin by the end of September, with an estimated completion in September 2024 for the unserved homes. The project will also involve upgrading infrastructure to existing customers that are currently on the Cox network, from the existing coaxial service to fiber optic service. Therefore, the entire Cox network in the county will be fiber optic, and those existing customers who we've heard from, and some have voiced service concerns, will see significant improvements in service with the agreement that is being proposed. The upgrade to existing services is scheduled to begin in approximately 1 year, July 2023, and is projected to be complete by August 2026. The project cost for the expansion to the unserved areas is $12,102,500. And the cost to upgrade the existing customer service is $4 million for a total project cost of $16,102,500. The funding for this project will not impact the county's tax rate. We already have the available funding to move forward with this project. $11,902,500 will come from revenues already received from Rosie's and Colonial Downs, and $4.2 million will come from federal American Rescue Plan Act funding. The county will also be applying for the Virginia Telecommunication Act initiative funding in the fall, which would reduce the amount of county funds needed for the project if we're successful in receiving those funds as well. This evening, you have a motion before you to approve an agreement that has been reviewed by our attorney to move forward with Cox Communications as our partner for the expansion of broadband service to serve every home and business in New Kent County.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. That's great news. Any board members have any comments?
Just maybe more of a question than a comment. All right, you said existing customers would see an improvement in their existing service.
Yes.
So they're going to actually go from the coaxial to a fiber optic cable? They're
Yes.
going to come back and read? Okay. I just
Yes.
want to make sure that it wasn't just an upgrade in service and not the fiber optic itself.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
That's a great question, Ms. Tiller, because that was not in their original proposal, and that's why negotiations took as long as it did, because that was something that we expressed to them when they made their initial proposal, that they missed the mark by not providing it to everybody, and they came back later with a proposal to upgrade current coax customers to fiber at our insistence. So that was a no-brainer for us, but it took a little bit of thumping in the head to get that through. So that was our goal all along, is everybody in the county to have the same level of service, and that same level of service was fiber to the home. So I think it was a good way to go. It also kind of cuts the timeline significantly. We'll have those 3,000 plus homes connected before the first connection would have been made by the other provider. So I think that this moves the timeline ahead by almost 2 years, and gets everybody up to the same level of service. So I think it's a good way to go. And not to mention, it saves about $10 million.
Yeah, it's a $10 million savings.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I would just like to thank the work of this board and the patience of the citizens, especially in my district. And I know Mr. Lockwood has the same concerns, but this has been the number one concern of my constituents. And I can promise you, this board and myself have been working very hard to make this thing happen. Unfortunately, it did not happen as quick as we wanted it to, but I can promise you, we were spending a lot of your money, taxpayers' money, so we had to make sure we got this thing right. And I feel like we got it right now. Like Mr. Lockwood stated, we're going to be quicker than with River Street. And River Street was only going to run it so far if you lived off the road. So if you lived 200 yards off the road, you were going to have to pay some additional funds. But they do not matter where you live, as long as they can get an easement to your house, then you will be able to receive fiber optic to your home. So I'm very excited about this project. As we move further, I will be conducting town hall meetings. We still have some negotiating to do with timelines and everything. When we will know when people are actually going to be hooked up, we're going to be working with Cox. I'll have representatives from Cox out meeting with all the constituents. So we will actually kind of have a timeline of when your area will be hooked up. So I'm very looking forward for this project moving forward, and just thanks to support from the board for making this happen. And the patience, again, of the citizens.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Page? Somebody.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the county administrator to execute the proposed agreement with Cox Communication in a form approved by the county attorney for the expansion of fiber optic high-speed broadband service to every resident and business in the county for an amount not to exceed $16,102,500. This authorization is contingent upon the appropriation of funding from the Colonial Downs Restricted Capital Fund.
Thank you, Ms. Lockwood. Any other discussion? If none, poll the members, please, Ms. Watkins.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Tag on it. Yeah. All right. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be held at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, September 7th, 2022, and the next work session at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, September 28th, 2022, both in the boardroom of the County Administration Building. There is no August work session. Any other discussion? Business? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Adjourned.